Welcome you all to the course on Gender Studies. This is the 20th episode in the series. Let me tell you the three objectives that I have framed for this episode on Margaret Atwood's The Edible Woman. The first objective is to understand the significance of the title. The second objective is to comprehend the relationship between sexuality and food as depicted in the novel. The third and final objective is to make the students contemplate over the gender identity and the social representation of gender. Hope you have understood the story. Now we'll get into the analysis. Let me begin with the title, The Edible Woman. So the title is ironic because it raises the question whether woman is to be consumed. Is she an object to be consumed, or is she a confectionery to be eaten? And it shows also the consumerist culture in America in the 1960s. So it was written in 1969, and sexuality was a talk of the day. And the consumption of an object has been shifted here to consumption of a subject. So, even to say, the subject has become an object here. So, objectification of women happens here. So, how she has become a consumable object is being pictured in the novel, and how does she undo this conception at the end of the novel is also revealed. This book is written after Margaret Atwood has been influenced by the two popular feminist critics. One is Friedan, the feminist mystic. So Betty Friedan has written the work called The Feminine Mystic, in which she attacks the conditions of women to accept the passive roles and depend on male dominance. So the book talked about whether to accept the passive roles, and also attacked the conditions of women at the time. So the dependency was downright rejected in the book. So the main talk of the book is the passive roles and should be rejected. It should not be accepted. Then the second important and significant work during the 1960s was Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, which she published 20 years before the publication of Edible Woman. So in The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir discusses how women always define themselves in relation to men. So women were treated as other. Men never see women like them, a peer or collaborator, but rather stranger or someone alien to their self. So men treated women as other, that is insignificant, trivial, somewhat alien from their real self. So she says women submissively accepted this role which is imposed by men. Therefore they are not playing the role which is their own but is imposed. So both Betty Friedan and Simone de Beauvoir are talking about the gender roles which they consider as passive one and imposed one. So the female should not accept the passive roles dictated by male according to Friedan, and according to Simone de Beauvoir, the female should not accept the roles imposed by men. So the roles are imposed or passive. So these two ideas are prominent in the text Edible Woman. So if you happen to read the book with the perspective, you can almost understand that the book is a testimony to these two ideas. Now these two books question the gender roles of women and attempted to revolutionize the passive and imposed roles played by women, and this is what is experimented in the work The Edible Woman. Atwood attempts to change the passive Marian to do an active role and to challenge the imposition of her sexual submission to Peter, or in fact to say patriarchy. The P stands for patriarchy. So let me read it again. Atwood attempts to change the passive Marian to do an active role and to challenge the imposition of her sexual submission to Peter or patriarchy. So Atwood questioned the sexism. The sexism means Atwood questions the sexism that people's worth are made on the grounds of their sex and sexual roles. So sexism dictates, or sexism connotes, people's worth are made on the grounds of their sex and sexual roles. It is sex which decides the role of person. That is why here the cake plays a pivotal role. If you want sex, Peter, you can eat the cake. I think this is what you want. So it is ironically saying that if you want to consume woman, you just eat the object, because you just consider the women as object. Therefore, I don't find difference between Marian and the cake, which is an object. So Marian is a subject and the cake is an object. And according to the perspective of male members, women are object. If it is so, then why don't you take the cake instead of a woman? So this is a radical view that Atwood wants to convey. So let me now see gender roles, or gender in women, particularly in the novel. Many women are playing their role, and we just trace the ideology behind the women. So gender in women. Clara is a traditional and a conventional woman, and she has got married to a person called Joe, and the person is also adjustable and understanding her pitiable state as a mother, a typical mother. Her only role is to take care and nourish the children, and even at the young age she got married to Joe and almost left behind her dreams and ambitions and started doing the assigned work of a mother. And at the time of her marriage, she was very young and attending her graduation. And after her first pregnancy, she started delivering children. Now she is now pregnant and having a third child. The two children are already playing and taken care of by Joe. Therefore, it's a typical traditional or conventional woman, and it comes under the functional category, a functional society or functional theory, where men and women are mandatory to family. Now, Marian is in dilemma between the two roles, either to go with traditional or to do something radical like Ainsley. So she is in between Clara and Ainsley. She neither wants to be traditional like Clara, because she never identifies herself with Clara. She never wants a family like Clara and having so many children. and dumped with the pressure of taking care of children and familial responsibilities. And also, she is not ready to become Ainsley, who wants to deliver a child without getting married, and she who wants not a father to maintain a child, and the single motherhood. So she doesn't want the particular thing as well. Therefore, she is neither traditional like Clara and nor radical like Ainsley. So Ainsley is radical and unconventional woman. She is not conventional woman like Clara, and she is totally unconventional and radical. That is, her thinking is not something normal. It is something abnormal. It is not usual, something unusual. Because she wants to get a child without marrying. That is, she doesn't come to fix herself in the system called marriage. Therefore, she is radical. Another interesting thing about these gender roles in the novel is gender outlooks, that is, male members. How do the male members look at the female members? The images that men have of women. Let's see. Peter considers women as predators. They are simply eating us. They are simply sucking our blood. So he is a man who is anxious towards women to take them under his control. He wants women to be under his control. Unless he takes them under his control, they will take him under their control. Therefore, he wants women to be under his control. That is why he is insisting on marriage from the beginning of the novel. Even in the first part, the novel is divided into 3 parts. In the first part, he is often insisting Marian to marry him. The very reason is that because he can easily control her. He can easily get her into his control. And it is the need of his profession, that he is doing a work of a lawyer. Therefore, he wants a social status as a married man. For the purpose of status, and as well as the anxiety that other members at his age have already married, he is the one left unmarried. Therefore, these are some of the reasons or false reasons that he poses on her. So, the role of wife is imposed on her. Therefore, she rejects it. So, she is not a passive woman, and she is not ready to take the imposed role, as I already told you in that has been discussed in the 2 seminal works, Betty Friedan and Simone de Beauvoir. So she doesn't want to be something imposed on her, and she doesn't want to play the passive role that is allotted by Peter. Now the second interesting character is Duncan. So he considers women as nursemaid for men. So they are taking care of men. Women play a crucial roles of consoling men or taking care of men. They are playing a pivotal role in nourishing the state of mind of men. They are in fact a kind of soothing factor to men. It is what is the opinion of Duncan. That's why Marian takes him seriously and moves very amiably with him. Then the third character, a male character, is Len. He either uses women for sex or adores them. So he adores or glorifies women, or he uses women for sex, just like Ainsley uses Ainsley. So women are meant for sex. So this kind of objectification is found in Len, a womanizer. The fourth interesting character is Joe. the husband of Clara. So he sees women as vulnerable victims and yearly preyed upon. So he sees married women as a victim. They need a support, they need a care, they need a backup, and they need a second. They are almost a prey to the system. Therefore, they require a good backup and support. So this kind of responsible role is expected from a male member, and Joe is doing that role, and he has been taking care of the children as well. He is giving the simple support as a husband, and is doing the typical role of a husband of taking care of the whole family and taking responsibility of financial assistance and other things as well. Therefore, Joe is different from all the three. So Peter, Duncan, Len, and Joe. So the four different gender views are male images of women. So how the images that men have of women are changing from one man to another. Now, identity is an important theme in the novel. So self-identity. So in the first place, life and love is equated with food. So she finds the self-identity in food. Therefore, her loss of eating is a loss of self, and her consumption of food is equated to consumption of self. So when she is not able to eat, it can be rightly said that she is losing herself. When she is able to eat, it is known that she has regained herself. So anxiety, whether she is meant to be consumed or married off by Peter. So this is what is her major anxiety, that or tension that revolves around the novel. So whether she is meant to be consumed or married off. So consumption stands for marriage. The continuous proposal, the perpetual torture of marriage makes her hatred towards intensified her hatred towards Peter. So until the first part, she has been okay with Peter. But later in the second part, the overemphasis on marriage forced her to lose herself. And it seems that he is pulling or he is dragging her with the rope called marriage. And we can even say he has tightened the rope, or he has tightened the knot of the marriage. Therefore, she feels suffocated. She wants to come out of it. She wants to regain her self. So it is the major anxiety in the novel, whether she is meant to be consumed, whether she is going to become an edible woman or married off by Peter. So the three parts. Now let us move to the three parts, the narrative strategy in the novel. Margaret Atwood has used first person narrative in the first part, and the third person narrative in the second part, and in the final part, the small part, she has used the first person narrative again. It shows in the first person narrative in the first part, the self is felt by Marian. So she is holding herself, and she has got her self control. Her self is controlled by her. And the second part, it turns to third person, that is her loss of identity, her eating disorder. So the eating disorder connotes to her loss of identity. So loss of consumption stands for the loss of identity. And again the third part stands for the first person, that is she started regaining her identity, or she started controlling herself. Therefore, the narrative strategy also stands for the stylistic study of the novel, and you can make the study. And the important turning point in the novel is that Peter on hunting and marriage, when Peter talks about hunting, and it was the starting point of the hysteria to Marian. So she was totally upset with the talk and wanted to get rid of the uh, male ideology, that is hunting, blood, etc. And she feels herself consumed in the hunting, and the hunting can also be equated to the hunting for women in the marriage. So Peter is hunting Marian. So identification of food or eating as metaphor. So here eating is used as a metaphor or equated with sex and love. So eating or food is equated with sex and love. How it has become tremendously used, let's see. Eating as a metaphor for power. Those who eat are powerful and those who do not are powerless in the society. So wedding is an approach to consumption to Marian. So wedding is considered to be a consumption to Marian, and it seems that she is eaten by the she is eaten in the name of marriage. So she stops eating and thinks she eats herself. So whenever she eats something, particularly steak, she thinks that she is eating her own flesh. And she is also witnessing in the mirror that her own image is vanishing. So she offers herself as food to Peter in the form of cake. This is what you want, she says. And Peter is unable to eat. Therefore, she happily realizes that she has regained herself. Therefore, she eats the cake for him. And food is one of the resources available to women. So why Margaret Atwood has used the metaphor of food? Because food is one of the resources available to women. Females in the cultural context of the story control food. Therefore, it is they who buy and cook. And with this idea, Margaret Atwood has excellently portrayed the metaphor food or eating as metaphor, which is equated with the expression of sex and love. So to conclude, I just use the symbol cake. So cake is used as a symbol here because American society at the time of 1960s known for its consumerist culture. That is, women were used as a sex toy, and the consumerist mentality was much prevalent at the time. Therefore, the imposed roles were rejected, and the passive women became active. It was the right time for the book to emerge. In fact, to say, the book was first rejected by the publisher to whom it was given. Later, Margaret Atwood became somewhat famous. The book was taken again, the manuscript was taken again and published. The dominant culture might have probably promoted the book because it was the dominant culture that usually promotes the ideas of a literature. Therefore, it was a popular literature at the time, since the culture was such that. So cake is equated with self here. So since Peter has seen her as an object, she wanted to present herself as an object. How can she do that? So she presented a girl like herself in the form of cake. So Peter never eats it. Therefore, she regained herself. she eats the whole cake. She eats the cake vigorously. It shows how happy she was to regain herself. She had again a control over her identity. She had not lost herself as she thought of, as she imagined of. Right? She thinks that it is merely illusion that she has lost her. So, through this experiment of presenting a cake to Peter, she understands her real self is not lost, and she started eating again. She is not consuming herself, she is consuming mere object. In fact, she has swallowed herself. She has swallowed herself through the cake and digested. So with this note, I just wind up this last session of this gender studies. Hope you have got some idea towards what is gender studies and how gender operates in the literature or literary text. Right? So with this note, I wind up this session and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Good luck.